Disclaimer, just like with the last meta-analysis 2.0, this is an addition to the original meta-analysis that I did on Shadow Paladin, so do check out the last one if you want to know some of the more basic knowledge of the clan. So, because Shadow Paladin did get some support, we have to look at some of the newer cards. There's going to be some generic ones, and then a little bit on Revengers and a little bit on Diablo. And I will also, this time, not forget to say how good each one is in the current meta. First off, let's go over the more general stuff, and since the last meta-analysis was before GPT-04 even, let's take a look at Aurgeyser Doomed first off. So if you don't know his skill already, he has an act once per turn, you can combo 1 and flip an Aurgeyser Dragon from your G-Zone face up, and choose 3 of your rear guards and retire them. You look at the top 2 cards of your deck. For each grade 1 or less revealed, you choose one of your opponent's rear guards and retire it, and then you put the cards revealed with this effect into your hand. And then if you have 3 or more face-up Aurgeyser Dragons in your G-Zone, then he also gets an extra critical. You can use this as a first stride to get some field control. You won't get the crit, but, you know, you still get some field control if need be. Otherwise, you can just stride into the Aurgeyser Dragon first, and then go for the retire and the critical after that. Generally very good stride, and pretty much a good one in all Shadow Paladin decks for now, so thought I would mention that first right off the bat. Next up is the other new stride, which is more for Diablo, but you can also use it generically as well. So this is Spectral Blaster Diablo. He has an act once per turn, Soul Blast 1, flip any unit face up, and you retire one of your own rear guards. Until end of turn, he gets the skill once per turn GB3. At the end of the battle, he attack, you can combo 2, and retire 2 of your rear guards, and then he stands and loses 2 drive checks. So instead of drive checking 3 times, he drive checks once. And after that, before you do the second skill, but still in the timing of the act, if your heart is a Diablo, you search for grade 1 card, call to your guard circle, and shuffle your deck. So because the cost is to retire 1 when you search for 1 more while having a Diablo heart, then that kind of breaks even. So, you know, it's good to retire something you don't need, only to search for something like a Karen and stuff like that. So definitely very good stride, especially good in Diablo. Finally, we have this poor excuse of a G-Guardian in Ludwig. When you guard with it, you choose a grade 1 or less rear guard and move it to your garden circle. Honestly, horrible. You're better off using the Cray Elementals until Shadow Paladin gets a better G-Guardian in a future set. Alright, first off, let's look at Revengers, and we're going to be focusing on Raging Form Dragon this time. So he wasn't doing that much the last time I did the meta-analysis, but now he is doing a lot more. He has the Limit Break 4 skill. At the end of the battle, they attack the Vanguard. You can retire 3 of your Revengers, and if you do, you choose a Raging Form Dragon from your hand right at stand, and he gets plus 10k, so it's a restanding Vanguard. And when it attacks, you can combo 1 to give it plus 3k, and he has the Lord skill. Now, before, this used to be a very dominant card back in BT12 meta, and then it kind of fell off, obviously, and now it's kind of back. Obviously, Abyss is also still good, as we mentioned in the last meta-analysis, but I felt that I should bring up Raging Form Dragon also because now we have a Limit Break Remover in Finnegas, which definitely helps the deck a lot, and we have 2 new cards, one of which is Revenger of Vigor Mauer. So when he's called, if your Vanguard is a grade 3 or greater Revenger, you can combo 1 Revenger. If you do, you search your deck for the card that's on your Vanguard circle, put it into your hand, show it to your opponent, and shuffle your deck. So you basically search out for the Raging Forms that you need for his effect, which is very nice because you can get them off manas and stuff like that. And finally, the other card that I wanted to mention is Dark Blessed Angel. When you retire her, you can combo 1, if she's retired by your unit's ability. You can combo 1 if you have a Revenger Vanguard. If you do, you search your deck for up to 1 grade 1 card with Revenger in its card name, call it to your regular circle, shuffle your deck, and at the end of turn, retire the unit call with this effect. This allows you to do Raging Form skill twice, essentially, in the same turn, and actually, there's like, you can actually do a combo where you win on the grade 3 turn. So basically on turn 3 if you go first. Now, this is a really good deck, but it's slightly inconsistent, but the fact that it can win on turn 3 is definitely something to be afraid. So I still see Revengers as pretty strong in the meta. Like, if you've watched the competitive wrap-up series, you'll see that Revengers top pretty often, so it's definitely a very strong deck, and I'm pretty sure next time it's going to get support, it's also going to remain pretty strong. And now, jumping ship to the other main meta Shadow Paladin build, which is Diablo's, and I do actually prefer Diablo as well. I thought I should have mentioned this at the start, but I do have deck profiles for both of these decks. If you want to check them out, I'll leave a link in the description. But Diablo, the main grade 3, is still Blaster Dark Diablo. We went over him last time, but now there are 2 types of backup grade 3s that you can play. The inferior of which I'm going to say is Vortimer Diablo. Now, he has a GB2 skill. During your turn, when you would stride a Diablo, you can retire one of your rear guards. If you do, you search your deck for a grade 1 card and call it to rear guard circle, and then if the card that you stride is Spectral Blaster Diablo, you search your deck for another grade 1 and call it, and the cards that are called this, if I get plus 3k each, and then you shuffle your deck. So you basically get an extra card out because you have to retire one and they get a plus 3k buff. And then his other skill is when you ride him, you can almost one soul plus one, search your deck for a grade 1 card and call it and shuffle your deck. So the problem with him is that while he generates a lot of advantage, he thins out the deck just a bit too much. And you already risk decking out with Diablo, and this just makes it way more possible. So that's why I don't find him that good. Instead, I would recommend Death Spray Dragon or the Phantom Blaster Dragon Breakcry that some Japanese players I've seen playing, and just in general, people play that. But Death Spray is a good one because at the end of the battle, he attacks a Vanguard, you can count +1 and retire one of your own rear guards. If you do, you retire one of your opponent's rear guards. This is on GB1, but you have some cards now that trigger off of being retired, so you kind of get 2 skills in one, and we're going to talk about those cards in just a minute. But this is a very good one because it gives you some fuel control, and you know, it's on the Phantom Blaster Diablo turns. This becomes a lot more scary because if you retire one of their rear guards on top of, you know, forcing them to retire 2 with Diablo, it just makes the turn a lot more scary for them. That's why I do like Death Spray quite a lot. Let's look at some supporting cards, the first of which is Hole. So he has a GB1 skill in Rearguard Circle. When you call a grade 1, if your Vanguard's a Diablo, when it's called, you give your Vanguard and Hole plus 3k. And then this isn't once per turn, so it works each time you call a grade 1. So if you call 3, both the Vanguard and Hole get plus 9k. And if the grade 1 that was called would be the new Kaedan, then you countercharge 1, soul charge 1, which is really good because the deck does use up a lot of soul and a lot of counterblast, so this is a very good one. Now, Kaedan is the one that I talked about that has like being retired interaction. So when he's retired by your unit's ability, if your Vanguard's a Diablo, you give your Vanguard plus 5k and the on-hit skill to search a grade 1 when the Vanguard hits. And then when you call that grade 1 that you searched, if you have a hole in the field, the unit called with this effect gets another plus 5k. So you put on a lot of pressure by retiring him, which is very, very nice. So a lot of people will start blocking the Vanguard after that because, you know, this is a pretty threatening grade 1 that I really actually like. The addition of Hole and Kaedan are, you know, probably my favorites to Shadow Paladin as of recent times. Some other tools that the deck got is Dark Saga Painter. When your Vanguard's a Diablo, it's basically grade 1 of the deck. So all those cards that search out grade 1s can search out Dark Saga Painter, so you get an intercept, you get a grade 2, all that cool stuff. But it comes with a little downside that when it's called and you have GB1, and you have a Vanguard with Diablo in its name, you have to draw a card and discard one. So sadly that can lead to decking out, which is a bit sad, but you know, the filtering is quite good, so it's up to you if it's a bad effect or a good effect. Now finally, the last card that I would mention that has nice little interaction with being retired is Full Bow Diablo, which is a really good new starter. So when it's retired by your unit's ability, if your Vanguard's a Blaster, you can search your deck for up to 1 card with Blaster Dark in its name, call to your circle and shuffle your deck. Now there is the combo that I've mentioned in the past where you can use Death Spray to retire Full Bow Diablo to retire one of their units, and then use Full Bow Diablo's skill to call a Blaster Dark Spirit, and use the Blaster Dark Spirit skill to retire another unit, and then with Phantom Blaster Diablo you force them to retire another 2 units, and because of Blaster Dark Diablo's skill you retired another one, so basically you're asking for 5, essentially. I've mentioned this in quite a few videos already, but I thought I would mention it in the dedicated Shadow Paladin video. Now Diablo is a very strong deck, and so since we're talking about the meta, I think it actually puts up a big fight. Now that Kagero is a bit more mainstream, and thanks to stuff like Defeat Flare and Denial Griffin, Shadow Paladin is not as good as it was 1 set ago, but it's still very strong. The only problem is that when you do stuff with like Spectral, for example, like you attack with Spectral to your opponent's Vanguard and they use Defeat Flare to just nuke your back row, like there go your retires, and that kind of hurts. So yeah, that is quite unfortunate. Like when your Karens get Defeat Flared, it definitely hurts. So yeah, Kagero is kind of almost like a counter, but you know, you do have some counterplay against Kagero, so it's quite alright. And yeah, so Diablo remains to be a very strong deck because it has the ultimate threat of Phantom Blaster Diablo and Spectral Blaster to add to it now, and you've also got the Aura Geysers to go into. The only weakness of it is that it is a Stride reliant deck, so unlike Revengers, who are much less reliant on Stride and much more reliant on just winning the game as fast as possible, this is more of the long-paced Shadow Paladin build, but it can steal wins very, very early thanks to Phantom Blaster Diablo, so in general it's a pretty well-rounded deck. So that pretty much does it for this meta-analysis 2.0. Thank you very much for tuning in, and I hope it did help you if you're interested in the Shadow Paladin clan. I guess I'll do a 3.0 the next time Shadow Paladin gets main set support, which should be sometime during the next season. So that's pretty much it for me today. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.